So today we will see how textures can be manipulated and adjusted within the 3D viewport. So for that I'm going from layout panel to texture workspace, and in the texture workspace we have to, if I click on this object, you can see there is a error saying that it has a missing material and textures detected. So we need to give it a new texture, and I'm going to the plus and going to the base color and clicking on OK. I will get a new texture slot. So we will get down to the texture option, and here in the texture submenu, if I click on this, currently I have no texture slots. So if I click on this new button, a texture slot will be created, and we can give it a name over here if we want to give it a name. The next option is fake user. For example, let me click on this button to create a new slot. So we have two slots, and there is a 0 in front of this name. What it indicates is, if I save this file and open it next time, the texture slot with 0 as the prefix, those will be deleted off, because it's the way of saying to Blender that these texture slots are there but they are not being used. To avoid that, what we can do is use this icon, which is a shield icon, fake user. What it actually does is it will put a F suffix in front of the texture slot, and it indicates to the Blender that even if these texture slots are not being used, we actually need those slots and do not delete it the next time I open it. So the F will be there and the 0 will not be there the next time we open Blender. So that's how fake users will be used, and this is the new. And if I click on X, it will unlink the texture slot. The textures are still there, just they are unlinked. So I will click on one of the texture, and then if I click on this last icon, what it actually does is it will change this tab from active tool to this texture properties. It does anything fancy. So if I click on this, what it will do is it will go to the texture properties, and here I can create a new texture, or I can open a texture, which I will now do. So open it, and now the texture is being opened. I will go to the active tool, and here I will come down, and here the texture upload refreshes. So after that, instead of going into the mapping right from the starting, I will instead go first to the last one, which is stencil. So if I click on stencil, you will get the clear idea of how Blender's texture workspace works. So the moment I bring this mouse pointer from the properties tab to 3D viewport, this stencil will appear. This is the stencil of this image. Now if I click and drag, what is going to happen is it is going to paint the texture. Unfortunately, it is painting it in blue color. The reason being is, last time I have given it a color blue, so it has remembered it. So what we need to do is, we can do two things. Either we can click on backspace to get it to the default color, or we can click on it and then reduce the saturation. It will get to the white color. So now if I paint it, it will paint the original colors. So I will keep this face over here. Now you can see the image is actually squashed. So to avoid that, we can click on image aspect, so it will set it right. And now if I right click and drag, I can move the stencil. With shift and right click, I can scale the stencil, and control right click, I can rotate the stencil. And if you want it to be the way it was prior, what we can do is we can click on reset transform. It will get back to how it was. I will click on image aspect and right click and keep it over here. And then what we can do is we can just click and drag over here, paint over here. So it will paint the texture on the object. So that is how this texture paint works actually. So if I come from mapping of stencil to view plane, what it actually does is it will put my texture on the brush itself. What you can do is, from the people who are coming from the Photoshop background, they will know that square brackets which are right above the enter on the keyboard. Square brackets will help us size the brush. So left square bracket and right square bracket will increase and decrease the size of the brush. So what it will actually do is it will put a daub of the texture on the paint of my stencil on the texture of the box. So right now the edges are very soft. If we want it to be hard, what we can do is we can scroll wheel over here and go to fall off and come over here and click on constant, and if I click here it will give it a sharp edge. Now the texture paint module is completely going to be revamped. So be and stick to this system and understand how this system works, so that the revamped texture system will be very easily understood. They are working on it very hard. They means Blender development team. And if you want to support Blender development fund, what you can actually do is you can go to this Blender website, and here on this download button you can click on donate button. On the donate button you can click on donate button, and a lot of people are supporting it financially. These are the big companies which are supporting it. It goes from Google to Adobe to Microsoft to Ubisoft to Nvidia to Amazon Web Service to AMD to Unity to Intel to Volkswagen. Very big companies are supporting it. So if you want, you can support that as well, or if you want, you can support me as well. What you can do is you can go to the Google Pay, Phone Pay, Paytm, and phone number will be given in the description as well. And if you want, you can support me through Patreon's page. Links will be given in the description as well. And if you want to go beyond that, what you can do is watch the entire ads which are following on this video without skipping it. Even after the video has been finished, there is a 5-second time down, so that will help me a lot and keep this video coming to you right on your face. Hope you are not getting offended by that. So view plane is going to do that, and tile is nothing but, bathroom tiles, they are the same pattern. So in the same manner, if I reduce the size of the brush by using the left bracket, square bracket, so what it actually does is it will tile the texture. Next is 3D. What it actually does is, our cube is there. Blender watches the 3D object from the top, and it will apply the texture on it and then stretches the side of it. That is how this system works. So what it actually does is, if I come on the top of this, if I come on the top of this object and paint it over here, the texture will be painted. But the moment I paint it on the side, it will be stretched. It will be based on the object's coordinate system of how the texture is to be placed on it. So that's how the 3D mapping works. The next is random. As the name suggests, what it actually does is it will put the location of the texture randomly. I am just clicking at the same place repeatedly. And one more thing I forgot to mention is, where is the place over here? Right. So the next thing is, the view plane does show us a daub of the texture. If I click on random, what it actually does is it will randomly rotate the texture. And instead of random, if I click on rake, what it actually does is, the moment I click and drag this texture, it will rotate the texture the way I am dragging it. It is like raking the sand. You can type raking the sand in the Google and you will find out very wonderful and peaceful calming videos. So that's how this raking works. And the last but not the least is offset and size. What it actually does is, let me go to stencils so that I could illustrate it wonderfully to you. So instead of this beautiful girl, what I will do is I will go to this texture slot, take another slot, open a new image which has transparency, which is something like this. I will go to active tool. It is stretched. To avoid this stretching, we can click on image aspect. so the stretching will be avoided. And in the side, in the size, if I click and drag below and type 3, so it is giving me a 3 by 3 column and row of texture. So what it can be used for is, it can be used for designing it, it can be used for creating patterns. So that's how it will be very useful. Next is offset. What it actually does is, now you see how the leaves are presented over here. If I click and drag over here and tap, this value actually goes from -10 to 10. So if I tap 5, which is in between 0 to 10, and now if I bring the mouse over here, you can see it is half the texture offsetted. So that's how this offset works. So this is how the texture system works within the Blender's viewport. So it is a very wonderful way of applying textures to the object. Till then, try to see it, learn it, understand it. I will see you in the next video.
Veda.